we are talking about The Golem. This is a new horror movie kind of produced by Dread Central. And The Golem, in case you don't know, is not a solo movie from Lord of the Rings Smeagol character. It's actually a Jewish kind of folklore thing where it's a kind of a creature made out of inanimate objects, most normally clay or earth, or something like that, given life by a kind of spell, and it has this kind of scroll within its mouth that kind of, you know, makes it alive ultimately. And it's a thing that was kind of a folklore that people said would protect them from, to protect Jews specifically from outside threats. So that's basically what a golem is. So the movie focuses on the 17th century, and it's in the time of the plague. Now there is this Jewish community that's kind of fairly isolated, so they're unaffected by the plague. And we have this group of Catholics that are have been affected by the plague, and they basically think that there's some type of kind of witchery going on because these Jews are, you know, unaffected. So they're kind of very mistrusting of them, and this particular kind of leader of this kind of Catholic group, his daughter's ill, and he kind of rides out to this kind of this Jewish village and kind of basically holds them hostage and demands that they kind of heal his daughter, and ultimately it turns violent. And then we have this one woman who has lost her child. It's this Jewish woman who's lost her child some years previous, and she's struggling to conceive that kind of with her partner. And she decides she's going to take matters in her own hands and ultimately kind of make this golem, which takes the form of this kind of young boy that does that job. It's basically like a Terminator. This is kind of like a horror version of a Terminator. It's kind of an unstoppable killing machine, basically, that absolutely will not stop, and it's very, very tough. And yeah, it basically kind of just ultimately kind of kills anyone that ultimately threatens the Jewish community, but then kind of more specifically threatens this woman. So it ends up kind of killing people within the Jewish community. So it's a little bit kind of unpredictable to a certain degree, and you know, ultimately there's kind of the division within this particular Jewish community, whether they should, you know, just get rid of it and stuff, and it all comes down to a bloody climax. That's kind of all we'll go with it. So what do I think of The Golem? I think this is a comparable movie to The Witch in a lot of ways. It's kind of a period piece. It's kind of a slow-moving drama, more so than like a balls-out horror. Though it does get kind of like violent, especially at the end. And when it does get violent, it doesn't hold back. I think that there's a fair amount of, you know, severed body parts and blood spewing everywhere. But it almost plays more like a drama with these kind of like very kind of like well photographed, I've got to say, sort of dramatic scenes. I mean, the actual cinematography here is really good, very, very artistic and kind of like well kind of like photographed shots here. I think it's absolutely beautiful cinematography. I actually thought the acting was all very, very good as well throughout the whole movie, with all of the cast. I think everyone does a great job here. Even there's kind of this young boy who literally doesn't speak, who's kind of playing this golem. Just his physical acting, I think, you know, is both menacing and, you know, and kind of adorable at the same time. But again, that's down to the kind of the makeup department and the photography as well. And then we get to our effects. I think they do an excellent job here of making some very, very violent scenes seem very realistic. There's little hints of kind of CGI blood and stuff a little bit, but you know, I think the most what they do kind of really, really well. Negatives here. It's maybe a little bit slow for some people. I actually thought the movie was actually fairly perfectly paced. I do have a couple of issues outside of that, which I feel more legitimate. This to me feels like it was cut. The movie was, it's not as long, it's about an hour and a half long, but it feels more like it was 2.5 hours, and it's been edited down to fit a lower running time, because you do feel things are kind of like set up and mentioned, and it just feels like stuff was cut out, almost, and like, you know, a lot of kind of character work was maybe cut out. And there's an intro scene here which is completely irrelevant. I don't know why it's there. It's completely irrelevant to the rest of the story. It just wastes time, if you ask me. But to be honest with you, I feel this movie is definitely worth a watch. I mean, part of me thinks this should have been a foreign language. It's set in Lithuania, and obviously everyone's speaking English, so you have that, you know. I mean, to have that kind of real level of realism, it should have been really a kind of foreign language film, but I guess that kind of bugs me at the same time, because I don't really like it when they do that, but, you know, I understand the reasons. But it's definitely worth a watch. Like I've said, if you like things like The Witch, or slower kind of moving, more dramatic kind of horror, I mean, I haven't seen Hereditary, but apparently that's kind of like that as well, then you may want to check it out. I'll give this one a 7 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me comments, and I shall look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.